Welcome to Spokane Talks, where you'll find the latest in community news, views, and conversation. Spokane Talks is brought to you by Rada Paint and River Ridge Hardware. Now, join your host to hear what Spokane's talking about.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Spokane Talks. I'm Collin Pittmann. Well, when Gabe Tesch was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2013, doctors said he would never race again. But stay with us to see how Gabe is beating all the odds. And it's fire season here in the Inland Northwest. Guy Gifford is here to tell us all about how to protect our home and yards this summer. And local author Sharma Shields has released a new book called The Cassandra. Stay with us to see where it takes place in Washington. And we couldn't forget about Cindy Hval's hilarious Front Porch segment, all when we come back on Spokane Talks. Stay with us.
Here at River Ridge Hardware Garden Center, where we have all the plants and flowers that will spruce up your yard, from the lilacs for Spokane's Lilac City to awesome hanging baskets and pots that you can actually put the hanging baskets in. Here at River Ridge Hardware, we want to help you set up your landscape needs. Neighbors helping neighbors at River Ridge Hardware.
Welcome to The Car Guy. My name is Klaus Kinder. I'm your host. My passion with cars and absolute love for motorsport started a few years back, and more than a few years back. Our guest today is Gabe Tesch. He started early as well, but his story is just a little bit special. I'd like to welcome Gabe Tesch. You're a great kid, a talented, aspiring race car driver. Good morning, Gabe.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It's good to have you here. Tell us something. When did your passion for motorsport start?
I think it's been my whole life. But it really started when I went to the F1 race in 2016 at Austin, Texas. It was just being that atmosphere that really...
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, huh? F1's a big deal. Your racing had a little bit of a setback, didn't it, when you originally started? What happened?
Yeah, I got diagnosed with brain cancer in 2013. And that the doctor said I could never race again. Well, never race, because I wasn't racing before that. But they said I'd never have the fitness level to race and stuff.
And yet here you sit today. Your first year in karting, you won a championship, yes?
Yes.
And your second year?
I won a championship again.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You've chosen the number 48 as your number. You know, you're in pretty big company with that. Dan Gurney's number used to be 48. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Johnson's number is 48. Any correlation?
No, I'm not really a big NASCAR fan.
And but why the 48?
Because that's how many weeks of chemo and radiation I had, and it stands out because my old number was 16, but 16 is a really common number, and 48 is a number that no one really has, so it just kind of pops out.
Cool. You've got this logo. You got this great logo. You got your number 48 in your name, and you've got these graphics around it. Explain that to me.
Yeah, the green is for renewal and rebirth, and then the gold is for childhood cancer, and then the gray is for brain cancer.
And this logo, you're trying to get this kind of into the racing world, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it can be changed for...
Yeah, like my mom's would be 16 for 16 weeks of chemo, and then it'd be pink and gray and green.
Very cool. Very cool. You're racing karts now.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hoping your karting is going to lead to?
Formula One, professional racing.
Going all the way to the top.
Yep.
And that is the top. Formula One is most certainly the top.
Yep.
Giving any racing series, is that where you want to be?
Yeah, if as a racing driver, anything you get, you do. But Formula One is my dream.
Very cool. Very cool. We're going to take a short commercial break, and I'll be right back with Gabe Tesch. Thank you for joining us this morning.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
And we're back with our guest, Gabe Tesch. Good morning, Gabe. You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm living the dream.
Okay, cool, baby. I understand you work out with a trainer.
Yeah, twice a week because racing is a really fit sport. A lot of people say that racing's not a real sport, but it's one of the most physical sports in the world.
It is physically demanding, isn't it? It's very,
Yes.
very physically demanding. These guys in F1 are absolute bloody athletes. I mean, these guys sit in a
Yeah.
car in a cockpit that's 130 degrees. They're pulling 4.5 Gs. They're doing this for almost 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'll tell you what, you better be fit.
Yeah, you have to be
But
really
what
fit.
the amazing thing is not only the physical fitness, the physical part of it, but the mental focus required is astonishing.
Yeah, it's a big mental game.
It is a big mental game. It's like a 150-mile-an-hour chess game.
Right.
Right? All right, we're going to do our rapid full throttle round. You ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Where do you hope to be in a year?
I'm starting to get into cars because racing's an age thing, so you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I'm getting to that 18, 17 age, so that's when you start moving into cars and starting to get more sponsors, and because it's a really expensive sport.
It is terribly expensive. Your budget this year for just go-karting,
Yes, it's
Is-
$60,000.
$60,000 a year to go
Yes.
go-karting. Wow. Well, when you compare that to Ferrari's budget of $600 million last year, it's
Yes.
still a lot of money, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you bet it is. Where do you hope to be in 5 years?
I'm starting to make the professional level, like Formula One or IndyCar.
Who's your favorite race car driver?
Ayrton Senna.
And with good reason. What's your favorite race car
Probably Niki Lauda's 1976 F1 car.
and your favorite race track?
Probably Brazil or Laguna Seca or something like that.
I like Seca. Seca's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really fun track. It's a good rhythm track. Do you
Yeah.
think anybody will ever beat Michael Schumacher's 7 championships?
I think Hamilton might tie it, but I'm hoping to beat it when I get to Formula One.
I'll tell you, folks, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I've got this kid he's incredible. He's gifted. He's a wonderfully talented driver. He's made it through unbelievable adversity and has come out the other side just determined to do this thing. I love your grit.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
It's lilac season in the inland Northwest, but it's also fire season. Stay with us to see how you can protect your home and yard this summer.
Here at River Ridge Hardware Garden Center, where we have all the plants and flowers that will spruce up your yard, from the lilacs for Spokane's Lilac City to awesome hanging baskets and pots that you can actually put the hanging baskets in. Here at River Ridge Hardware, we want to help you set up your landscape needs. Neighbors helping neighbors at River Ridge Hardware.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
And welcome again to House to Home. I'm Clyde Hawsey, your host, and today I have a special guest, Guy Gifford with the Department of Natural Resources. Welcome aboard, Guy.
Thanks, Clyde.
You know, folks, every home in the outlying areas of Spokane and even inside the city limits has one thing. We usually have, a lot of us have a few pine trees around us. And the selection of plant material around our home is so important. And Guy, we've been talking about how to sustain a safe presence of for fire protection around our home. Choices of right plant material, and give us a few examples of what you would be thinking of as a person who has to go out and fight these fires.
We want a plant that won't readily burn. So we don't want one that has a lot of dead material underneath, that has a fairly open branching pattern and not a lot of vegetation to burn. Or it's very moist. Your rhododendrons would be a good choice. A lot of your flowering plants are good choices. An example of a bad one would be anything in the juniper family.
He beat around the bush, and he just didn't say a juniper is a bad plant, okay? We don't need that at the foundation of our home, right?
That has all the bad qualities. It burns easily, a lot of dead material, and
Right.
it's very volatile when it does burn.
And the other thing is, don't don't plant anything underneath the overhang that comes out of the home. And under your deck, we need to use gravel. We don't use, I get a kick out of this. And beauty bark is it's a beautiful name. It's a terrible product for fire, right?
It's terrible fire. It does burn. I've seen homes started on fire from beauty bark.
Because the ashes, and you've shared this with me, the ashes come blowing in, it lands on it, and how can you stop it? You don't even know it. Right?
Yeah, and it's what we call burning embers. They're like little matches, and you can travel over a mile, and you get thousands and thousands of them hitting your house, hitting your beauty bark, all potentially starting little fires.
Well, what he's telling you, that choices have to be made any day that you go out and buy a plant. And then where are you going to put it? You know, I've seen so much of this up next to the foundation of the home. Again, insects get underneath it, and then you turn around and you find that you have created a real fire hazard. So any other quick tips that you have that you want to pass on very quickly?
The key thing, getting the right plant in the right place and keep it in the right condition during fire season, the key to success.
Okay, with those words in mind, folks, our projects never do end on House to Home. And Guy Gifford, I want to say thank you for the Department of Natural Resources. Come back and join us next time as we protect your home.
Here at River Ridge Hardware Garden Center, where we have all the plants and flowers that will spruce up your yard, from the lilacs for Spokane's Lilac City to awesome hanging baskets and pots that you can actually put the hanging baskets in. Here at River Ridge Hardware, we want to help you set up your landscape needs. Neighbors helping neighbors at River Ridge Hardware.
Welcome back. I'm Clyde Hawsey with Guy Gifford from Department of Natural Resources. We've talked about plants around your home. Now let's talk about the outlying forest around your lot, shall we say. What are some of the things that need to be done?
One thing when you're in a forest environment is getting some space between the trees. We don't like seeing tree branches touching. Then we can easily get what we call crown-to-crown ignition, or fire from tree to tree. So spacing the trees out, and also we call limbing the trees or pruning the trees, because we don't want what we call ladder fuels. That's when fire starts and the grasses climb the branches and starts the trees on fire. So basically we want to create some space, some visibility between underneath the trees as well as between the trees.
Can we say 10 feet?
10 feet pruning? Yes, that's ideal.
Okay, and then the other thing is that I've said about is that when you always have a clear fighting chance with the fire is at least 30 to 60 to 80 to 100 feet out from it, right?
From around your structure, yes.
Yes.
Having what we call defendable space around your structure is key to helping protect your home from wildfire.
And you can even accomplish that even by keeping the grasses low, right?
Yes, keeping the grasses low.
You've said, if you mow it once, and I said, don't do that more than once, but keep it short. But after July, they'll pretty well stop growing.
Yeah, the nice thing about our native grass is after July, they go into dormancy. They don't grow again unless there's rain. And so usually if you get it done by the 4th of July, you're usually good for fire season.
You know what? This guy is the expert. Guy, I want to tell you, thank you again for all your services and all your firefighters. And whenever we need help, we just call you. And again, I appreciate you coming in today, sharing with us. Guy Gifford with Department of Natural Resources. He's got great ideas. If you have any given questions, give him a call. He'll even return your phone call, too, at times. So thank you again. Again, plan ahead. Get with the projects. Let's go do it. See you next time on House to Home.
Local author Sharma Shields has released a new book called The Cassandra. Stay with us to learn more about it.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Here at River Ridge Hardware Garden Center, where we have all the plants and flowers that will spruce up your yard, from the lilacs for Spokane's Lilac City to awesome hanging baskets and pots that you can actually put the hanging baskets in. Here at River Ridge Hardware, we want to help you set up your landscape needs. Neighbors helping neighbors at River Ridge Hardware.
Hello, welcome to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker, along with Sharma Shields, local author and all-around awesome person.
Oh, thank you.
And we're here today to talk about your latest book, The Cassandra. Here it is. I gotta hold it up here. Ta-da. This is great. If you haven't read any of Sharma's work, it's something that you must add to your list to do. So, Sharma, let's talk quickly about The Cassandra. There's so many things we can talk about. But let's start here talking about this one. It's set in Hanford.
That's right.
In the 1940s.
Yep, it's set right when they started creating Hanford in 1944, 1945, up until the bombs are dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
And the main character, a young woman.
That's right. Her name is
a job there.
Yes, her name is Mildred Groves, and she is cursed with the ability to see the future but not be believed ever.
Yes.
With whatever she foretells, just like Cassandra in Greek mythology. And she starts out the book in Omak, which is right next to where my mom grew up in Okanagan, Washington.
Curious to know, were there any other influences from Greek mythology in there aside from the...
Within this book, no.
Okay.
Really, I did think about the Iliad as I was writing, the Orestia, Agamemnon in particular, of the Orestia, because Cassandra makes a very beautiful speech in that about not being believed. And I was so surprised that even the chorus, which is usually the smartest, reader, so to speak, during a Greek play, and they kind of are the interpreters. They don't even believe her when she's talking about some of the things that are going to come to pass. And I felt her isolation and how alone she was in that scene, watching that. And so I think Mildred suffers from a similar feeling in the novel.
Sure.
Very isolated and frustrated that even though she's having these very powerful, strange visions, no one is listening to her.
Yeah. And you've done a lot of research on this, background research to make it as accurate as you could.
Yes, definitely. I went to Hanford. I did a tour. You have to book it months in advance now that Hanford is a national monument. So I went and saw the B reactor, and that really ended up fueling the entire plot of the book.
Yeah, that's great. It's wonderful as you're reading it. You can actually see it and feel it, and such a great job.
Thank you.
Such a great author. Again, it's The Cassandra. We got to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk more about that with Sharma Shields here on Library Out Loud. Welcome back to Library Out Loud. We're talking with Sharma Shields about her latest book, The Cassandra. And I'm reading the book. I'm about a third of the way in. And there's references to a Spokane movie star that I'm not aware of or familiar with. Susan Peters?
Yeah, Susan Peters. I came across her on a 100 most beautiful actresses of all time list, and she was in the top 10.
Really?
And I saw that she was born in Spokane, and I'd never heard of her. And this was right around the time I was starting to read the book, and so I researched her online, and her story was really fascinating. She was involved in a hunting actress with her husband, who was also a famous actor at the time.
Okay.
And then it paralyzed her from the waist down.
Oh my!
And she tried to reintegrate into a very ableist Hollywood, and of course had some struggles doing so. But just the timeline of it and everything worked with the book, and I love finding little pieces from history like that, especially when they relate to the Northwest, and plugging them in. It's like working with a big jigsaw puzzle almost.
Sure.
And she was one of the characters that was really fun to learn more about. And just to mention, she's an actress that Mildred Groves is, of course, really enamored with.
Yes.
And the shoe on the cover could very well be Susan Peters' shoe that she covets. She really wants that shoe.
Absolutely. And she mentions her husband, Susan Peters' husband, real life husband or just in the movies?
Real life husband.
Real life, and he's mentioned in here because of a character that kind of looks like him.
Yes, that's right.
I'm assuming
Richard-
he's a
Richard
handsome man.
Quinn, yes,
Okay.
supposed to be very handsome and rugged, and they were a very outdoorsy couple who would hunt together and all of that, and hence how that hunting accident came to be. But I think their marriage didn't last. It sounds like because of her injuries, and so it's just a really interesting story and was fun to plug in there. There's some other historical figures like Mourning Dove, the indigenous writer who was also from the Okanagan area, and that references Kettle Falls and some other things that were happening at that time period. So that was really fun to put those pieces together.
It's great stuff. I recommend it. The Cassandra. Pick it up. Sharma Shields, thank you for being on Library
so much for having
Out Loud.
Me. Thank you.
Cindy Hval is a freelance columnist and correspondent for the Spokesman Review and author of War Bonds, Love Stories from the Greatest Generation. The view from her porch is usually sunny.
I picked up a fashion magazine at the hair salon recently. It was eye-opening. Nothing in those pages would be seen anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. Here in Spokane, we have just a few basic fashion types. There's baseball cap guy. This fellow must shower with his hat on because he never seems to take it off. He wears his hat to dinner, to the office, and even to weddings and funerals. He seems oblivious of the fact that ball caps are outdoor wear. Then there's heels so high it hurts lady. I just watched in horror as a woman attempted to cross Riverside wearing shoes with 5-inch heels. She tottered, she teetered, she wobbled, she wavered, and just when she reached the curb, her feet decided to call it quits, and down she went. Listen, it's hard enough to navigate Spokane's mean streets by car, let alone on stilts. Then there's T-shirt and tattoo dude. He's always fun. Apparently, he missed the memo that underwear is meant to be worn under clothing. Instead, he wears white beater T-shirts to better shows off his strategically placed tattoos. And who doesn't love dressing like my teenage daughter lady? She's got distressed jeans, which is a fancy way of saying jeans with holes already in them, tucked into her Ugg boots. She carefully layers her Gap T-shirts. Her cell phone has dangly charms, and her ringtone is Ed Sheeran's Perfect. She insists her teenage daughter and her are best friends, but she doesn't understand why she always ditches her at the mall. The most common fashion type we see in Spokane is pajama person. Somehow there seems to be widespread confusion regarding sleepwear. I stood in line behind a woman wearing a sweatshirt and flannel pajama bottoms with pink elephants on them. Did I mention it was 4 p.m.? And in Spokane, you know summer's here when white sandals with white socks guy makes his debut. And that's the fashion report from my front porch.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Spokane Talks. We'll see you next week for more news, views, and conversation. Bye-bye.
Spokane Talks is about you. Give us your feedback and comments at info@SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Spokane Talks is everywhere you are. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Spokane Talks is brought to you in part by Rada Paint and River Ridge Hardware. We'll be back next week with the latest news, views, and conversation. Please join us.